Hey guys, this is 681 Shadow, and welcome to my first guide on Honkai Star Rail. So, I plan to make guides for the simulated universe, specifically worlds 3 through 6, because, 1 and 2 are pretty self-explanatory, and I feel like once you get from world 3 onwards, you have to deal with very specific mechanics, and I want to just give like a breakdown of those, and talk about what I did, and just give you all some tips to be able to beat these stages, because Simulated Universe is not only are the rewards pretty good for it, since you can have the point rewards that reset weekly, as well as the first clear rewards for each stage being pretty nice, but also the fact that I think it's probably the most, at least in my opinion, it's the most fun gameplay mode in Star Rail right now. And I've been playing it a lot. And if you guys are liking these guides and want to see more content like this, definitely be sure to like the video, sub to the channel, all that fun stuff. And before I go specifically into World 5, I also want to note that one of the best things I feel like about Star Rail and about how different people are going to be running different characters or going to have different characters is the fact that different strategies in getting through Simulated Universe are going to work for different people. So some people may be able to like brute force certain stages, while other people may just have like a good DPS of the weakness, or other people may rely on like DOT, or they may use shields. And all that is important to consider when you're using your team, but it really just comes down to making sure that your units are built up enough to be able to deal with the stages, as well as making sure you have units that can deal with specific mechanics that each of the bosses have. And I definitely want to make a video in the future as well, talking about more like general stuff for Simulated Universe, because at least between myself and a lot of the friends I have that play Star Rail as well, there's been a lot of talk about which path people are choosing in Simulated Universe, and I think that's such an important thing to think about, because different paths are going to work for different teams and different like main DPSs and whatnot. So yeah, I think that's something else I'm going to make a video on in the future, so be sure to subscribe if you want to see that. But for World 5, the main boss and the main one you gotta watch out for is Kafka. And she has some pretty annoying mechanics, I think, but they're also mechanics that are not too hard to deal with, thankfully. So her mechanics come in two parts. The first one being when she inflicts psychological suggestion on your party members. I believe it's anywhere from 1 to 3 of them can get hit at a time. I think the number increases as you get to the last phase. And psychological suggestion is a marker that prepares Kafka to be able to activate the second part of her mechanic called domination, where she will make your characters attack each other. And this gets really annoying if you're unable to deal with the mechanic, because if you see that when Kafka gets the domination off and your characters are attacking each other, every attack that your dominated characters do, Kafka's going to get an extra action, and with that she's just going to get a lot of damage done. And if your important characters get well, not even just important characters, but like if any of your characters get dominated by Kafka, then you're in a really bad spot, because if your DPS gets hit, then you're not doing as much damage, and you're doing damage to yourself. But then if you're a support or healer are caught with it, you're not able to bring your team out to the fullest. And if you're cleansers, which I'll talk about cleanse in a little bit here, because it's really the biggest thing you should have when approaching the stage. But if you don't have someone with cleanse, you're not going to be able to counteract the psychological suggestion and domination at all, which is just going to make it nearly impossible, I think, if you're around the level or like slightly below like the level recommendation, because the level recommendation for this stage is, I believe it's either 55 or 60, and I did it with I think the first time I did it with level 50s. But since then, I've done it with level 60s, but it's still challenging. There's still times where I'll lose the run on World 5. So the biggest way to deal with Kafka's mechanic is really just to have someone who's able to remove debuffs from your party, which is also known as having cleanse. And I think the two best units for, using cleanse with, one of them being a 5-star, which not everyone may have, and the other one being a 4-star, which everyone has. Firstly, there's Bronya, because with Bronya's skill, she's able to remove a debuff from a character while also advancing their action forward. So if your main DPS is under Psychological Suggestion, then you're going to be able to use Bronya's skill on them, and not only will they get another turn for free, you're also going to remove the Psychological Suggestion, and then they won't get dominated when Kafka's Domination activates, which is really good. It's going to save you a lot of damage to yourself by making sure that you have control over your main DPS. And then secondly, which I think I haven't tried her yet because I'm still kind of building her, but a free-to-play option that has cleanse is Natasha. You unlock Natasha's cleanse through one of her traces at Ascension 2, where whenever she uses her skills to heal an ally, then Natasha is going to be able to cleanse the psychological suggestion off of an ally. And being able to have that with a healer is super nice, because not only are you getting that debuff off, but you're also getting health back, which makes Natasha even more valuable, and she's a character that everyone gets for free during the story. So her being able to cleanse and being able to be a very strong counter to Kafka's ability, not to mention being one of her weaknesses as well, is really strong for this fight. So in terms of your team builds, as I said earlier, I don't think it really matters too much for like who's your main DPS or who's this or who's that on your team. But I think having at least one of either Bronya or Natasha, or any other unit that might have cleanse, whether it be now or like future units that come out, that's going to be so important, because you're just going to be able to counter the psychological suggestion. If you have enough luck with curios and blessings to where you can get extra speed and get more turns, or lower Kafka's speed and give her less turns, or give her turns slower, you're going to be able to cleanse more of your team. And there are situations where I end up getting psychological suggestion off of everyone before the domination can even activate, and then the mechanic is basically just null and void, which is so nice to be able to not have to deal with that. But other than that, if you're not dealing with that, just make sure you have enough healing through, like if you're running Natasha, enough healing through Natasha. If not, if you have Bailu like I do, make sure you have enough healing. Bailu's revive is super nice as well, but it's not always needed if you're able to get through the mechanics fast enough. And just make sure you're keeping your team healthy. But yeah, that's pretty much the main gist of Simulated Universe World 5. You really just need to focus on dealing with the psychological suggestion so that your units don't get dominated. And also, when it comes to this, don't be afraid, if you're able to take some parts of the fight slow, to make sure that your units are at good enough health, to make sure you're getting psychological suggestion off of your most important units, especially your cleanser. Because if your cleanser gets... Because you can take off the debuff during either stage, psychological suggestion or domination. But if your cleanser gets dominated, you can't take it off of anyone. So it's also important to keep them healthy as well. But yeah, I am going to end it off here. I think that's just a general, guideline of how the mechanics work and how to approach getting through it, as well as a couple choice characters that I think are really good, especially since Natasha. I think Natasha is probably the best option of the two I said, because she provides two very important roles in this fight, being a cleanser and then also being a healer. But yeah, let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.